And we are back. It is the Players You Need series where the question everyone is asking this week is, what do I do about Erling Haaland? And if you want my answer to that, by all means jump straight ahead to the Players You Need section, the best of team section. I always include chapters in these videos allowing you guys to navigate around the video as quickly as possible. So probably about halfway through the video, you'll see the chapter that says Players You Need or Best of Team for this week. If you want to know my answer to the Erling Haaland question, by all means, jump straight ahead because it will be the first thing I talk about. But if you do enjoy this series and you want to know everything that's going on, by all means, please watch the video all the way through because we're going to do our usual process of wrapping up last week's points, checking out the Esso 99 League before we then go into my suggestions for this week. And thank you very much if you are one of those who do watch the whole video. It means a lot to me for everyone who does that. And of course, if you are doing that, please remember to drop a like on the video as well. And of course, subscribe if you're new around here. Let's actually do that process now. Let's run through all the points that I scored last week before looking to see who beat me. So, Game Week 13 was an interesting one. Some things went really well, but the majority went really bad. Not for lack of picking the wrong teams and whatever. I picked the right teams, I just didn't get the right players. Wolves was a disaster, and as you can see on the bench, going for Jose Sarr against Leicester, and then Danny Ward gets the 8 points because Leicester won 4-0. Despite the fact that Wolves had 21 shots to Leicester's 5. It was just one of those games that just didn't go right for me. Cresswell thankfully got me some good points for West Ham. The rest of the defence, City conceding against Brighton, Liverpool losing to Nottingham Forest. Joe Gomez, to be honest, lucky to potentially stay on the pitch after that rugby tackle. Foden, we said, was a gamble in the Pep Roulette. That didn't quite pan out properly for us. And of course, Darwin Nunez didn't pass his fitness test, which meant that Rashford came in and did very well against Chelsea, but didn't get any points. And then Luke Shaw didn't come in, despite getting the assist. And then, picked the wrong strikers as well. So not the best week in terms of points, but we still were able to get 56, which was good enough for above average score. So I'm not going to complain too much, but it was a little bit disappointing to essentially get a lot of the right teams in terms of players to pick, but not the right players from said team. So it is what it is, but it did mean that there were some winners in the best of challenge. So these are the winners on screen now. Graham Harris with the biggest score, 77, a very, very good score for this game week. Myself, for the second week running, has actually beaten the best of team. So my team is finally starting to make its way up the league table, which is good to see, considering I expect my own team to be doing pretty well, and it hasn't been so far this year. And of course, congratulations to all of the other winners that you see on your screen right now. Remember that if you are getting involved, there is always a chance that you will get a shout out in one of the future videos because we do this every single week. Let's see what effect that has had on the league table. As you can see here, the gap at the top has closed once again. Bradley Rutherford massively narrowing the gap to James Morris with a ridiculous score of 74 himself. And the gap from 1st to 15th is now down to just 70 points. So it is getting closer and closer in the league table. It's all getting a bit exciting. Will James Morris be able to hold his lead going into the World Cup? We shall see. Will my team ever get into the top 15? I hope so, because like I say, I am on the rise at the moment. But it is now time for the moment you've been waiting for. It is the best of Game Week 14 team. The players that I think you need are in your fantasy football teams for this week. Let's get straight into it. So, I said I would start by addressing the Erling Haaland question. And my advice would be, if you've got him, and especially if you've got budget left over, you 100% keep him. The way I see it is Man City's remaining 3 fixtures before the World Cup are Leicester away today, then Fulham at home, Brentford at home. So even if he's only going to miss today's game, he's going to play in the other 2 games. And the likelihood is, against those 2 teams, with the greatest of respects to those 2 teams, you would expect Haaland to score at least 1 in probably both. So if you've got him, I would say keep him. Potentially even risk playing him today. Obviously, for the sake of the best of team, I'm not going to pick Haaland this week, but I think if you've got him, it's definitely not worth how much he'll cost more if you take him out. Because at the moment, I think he's 12.3, 12.4. Even in the best of team, when I took him out, it was only 12.1. So if you take him out now and then try to put him back in next week, you're probably going to lose around 0.2 to 0.4 million of your fantasy football budget, which is something you don't really want to do for the sake of a player that good for just 1 week, where there's still a chance, even on the morning of the game, that he's still going to play. So my advice would be to keep him, but of course, we're not going to do that for the best of team, and this is all about players that I think you should pick instead of him if you're not going to go for Erling Haaland this week. And the first player I am going to go for is the man that I went for last week, which is his January opponent, shall we say, his summer transfer rival, which is Darwin Núñez, because I am more and more impressed with this player every time I see him play, and people didn't really talk about it because they were all laughing at Liverpool that they lost to Nottingham Forest last week. But I think it was very noticeable that Darwin Núñez wasn't playing. I think certainly the chances that Van Dijk had and a couple of chances Firmino had, I think if Núñez was on the pitch, they probably would have scored those chances. So I've been really, really impressed with him over the last few weeks. He scored again in the Champions League against Ajax, and I think against Leeds in particular, who are a team all over the place at the moment. I think with a fit Darwin Núñez, I think he is going to do some serious damage to Leeds this week. If you are going to go for a Man City player, I'll just throw this out there. Without Haaland in the team, it does provide a lot more budget to this squad this week, to the extent that I've actually been able to have suggestions on the bench as well, like I have the last couple of weeks. So the only player that isn't is Danny Ward. And what I was going to say was, if you are going to go for a Man City player this week, I am suggesting Bernardo Silva. You could definitely also go for Phil Foden. I think the fact that he didn't play against Dortmund suggests that he is absolutely starting this week. But Bernardo Silva has started every single Premier League game so far. So he would be my Man City pick for this week. I'm not going to go for a Man City defender. I do think Leicester are probably going to score against Man City. So yeah, my suggestions are Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden. And if you've got enough budget for De Bruyne, then De Bruyne as well. And if you're brave enough to go for Julian Alvarez, then by all means go for Julian Alvarez. But I would only say you do that if you're taking Haaland out for Alvarez to then switch them back next week. So that's my Man City advice. As for the other potential striker options, I think there are an awful lot you could go for this week. And the two that I'm going to go for my suggested team and my best of team are going to be Mitrovic and Callum Wilson. Two strikers on ridiculously good form. Mitrovic at home to Everton, you'd expect him to score. Wilson at home to Villa, you'd expect him to score. But there are several other options that I think are good this week. Ivan Toney at home to Wolves. Again, player playing very well, trying to push for an England spot. Gabriel Jesus at home to Nottingham Forest. I'd say those are your top five. And I'm also going to throw this out there. Cristiano Ronaldo against West Ham. I think he's a very good pick this week. The only reason I'm not picking him is obviously I know that the three that I've picked are going to start and they're all three on good scoring form. But I think there's an outside chance Ronaldo starts against West Ham, and I think if he does, he'll score as well. So if you're feeling extra saucy and you're thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't play Haaland, try Haaland out for Ronaldo in and just see what happens. I've got a little funny feeling on that one. Anyway, rest of the team then. We will start with the goalkeeper, which is going to be Aaron Ramsdale, again at home to Nottingham Forest. And I'm even going to double down on the Arsenal clean sheet and go for Ben White as well. Very, very cheap option, Ben White. I'm surprised not more people have him, considering he is by far the cheapest of the Arsenal defenders. And not only that, he's playing every single game and he's playing at right back. So he started getting involved in assists as well. So I think it's a risky thing to say. I said I didn't give Nottingham Forest any chance of beating Liverpool last week, and they went and beat Liverpool. And this week I'm saying I'm not seeing Nottingham Forest having any chance of scoring against Arsenal. So another bold statement for me, another bit of disrespect towards Nottingham Forest, but I'm doubling down on the Arsenal defence. I don't think there are too many clean sheets out there this weekend, so that is why I'm doubling down on Arsenal. Next to them, I'm going to go for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Same reasoning I gave about Darwin Núñez. I just think Leeds are in massive disarray at the moment. And I just have a feeling on Trent. I think there is an opportunity for Liverpool to get a clean sheet this week. I think if they do and Trent plays, he will inevitably be involved like he normally is. He's long overdue a big fantasy football week, and if he doesn't do it against Leeds, I don't know how and when he's going to do it this season. So I'm going for Trent. I think Robertson again is also a good shout, but I always feel Trent is more likely to contribute. And the final defender for this week is going to be Luke Shaw. I'm allowing my Manchester United bias to get the better of me. I've been so impressed with Luke Shaw over the last couple of weeks. He's really upping his performances going into the World Cup, which is very good for England. And I'm backing us to get the clean sheet against West Ham. I'll be a little bit more worried if Maguire starts, but I'm going Luke Shaw. And not only am I going Luke Shaw, I'm going Marcus Rashford again as well. He's already got more goals and more assists this season compared to last season. So I think that's enough to justify his inclusion. Playing ever so well at the moment, and if Ronaldo isn't playing up front, then Rashford will be up front, and I think he is better than the West Ham defence, and I really think he's due an outstanding performance in the Premier League. He's getting closer and closer and closer. He finally scored a header against Sheriff this week, so he's sharp, he's in good goal scoring form, and I think he has an opportunity to get a goal against West Ham this weekend. Next up, it is going to be Wilfried Zaha. Crystal Palace at home to Southampton, looking to bounce back from a heavy loss to Everton. Zaha will inevitably be involved if Crystal Palace do get the win, so I think that is an obvious pick for this week. Bukayo Saka is the Arsenal attacker I'm going to go for this week. Obviously, all the usual suspects are available. Martinelli, Odegaard, Jesus if you want to go for a striker. Even Granit Xhaka at the moment is a fantastic pick for Arsenal at only like 5 million in the fantasy football, so if you haven't already got him, I'd probably say you pick him up as a potential cheap player to have in your squad. But I'm going for Saka this week. I think Nottingham Forest's left-hand side is probably their weakest point, so that is why I'm going to go for Saka. And the final player in the starting lineup for the second week running again is going to be Mohamed Salah, taking it full circle back from starting with Darwin Nunez. And I'm not going to make him captain. I've gone for Nunez as captain this week. I know Salah has been very hit and miss this season, but my logic behind this is that Liverpool have played Leeds 4 times, obviously, since Leeds have been re-promoted. And in those 4 games, Leeds have given Liverpool 4 penalties. And Salah's scored all 4. So even if he has a poor game, there's a very high chance Leeds give Liverpool yet another penalty, which inevitably Salah will take and score. So for me, that alone is enough to include him. Not quite enough to make him captain, which is obviously why I've gone for Nunez. But that is going to be the team. My other suggestions for this week are Kieran Trippier. Again, he is the highest point scoring defender now in the fantasy football, so he's doing very well. If it wasn't for the fact that Villa had just beaten Brentford 4-0, I would have gone for Trippier in the main team, but I do have a funny feeling that Villa will get a goal at St James's Park, so that's the reason why Trippier is on the bench. But he is still a good suggestion for the rest of you if you haven't already got him. I know a lot of you already do. And the final pick on the bench is just a reminder that the 4 million man, Callum Paterson, is now back fit for Everton. And obviously Everton are playing very well at the moment. I've not put him in the team because I still think, I've put Mitrovic in the main team because I think they'll score. But with Paterson back, he is going to start playing for Everton again. And Everton do have some nice fixtures, a couple of nice fixtures for the World Cup. So he could just be a nice one to plop back in your team as a cheap option going into the World Cup. And that is going to be it for today. As always, the final thing to say is if you think that your team is capable of beating the best of Game Week 14 team, please consider joining the Esso 99 League. It doesn't matter if you're joining it at this late stage of the season. The whole point of this series is for you guys to take on the best of team week on week to give yourselves a chance of getting shouted out in next week's video. It is as simple as that, and that is going to be it for today. As always, drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you when I do my Manchester United post-game reaction.